Have you ever noticed how convincing atheism can sound at first? You hear things like, "There's no evidence for God," or "Science explains everything," and it all sounds neat, logical, even liberating. You hear polished speakers like Sam Harris, Richard Dawkins, or Alex O'Connor, and their arguments seem airtight, intelligent, articulate, confident. A question so basic, so obvious, that we tend to brush it aside. But then, someone asks a question. A very simple one. Where did everything come from? Don't bury it under the usual answers like the Big Bang or science. We'll figure it out eventually. Pause and ask yourself honestly, what is the origin of everything? Not just galaxies and stars. It studies what's already here. It can explain how things behave, but it doesn't explain why they exist in the first place. Not just life on Earth, but matter itself. Energy, space, time, consciousness, morality, logic, the laws that govern the universe. But it doesn't tell us what caused the Big Bang. No energy, no space, no potential, no laws. Absolute non-existence. In fact, according to the model, time and space themselves began at the Big Bang. So if time itself had a beginning, what was before time? The question almost doesn't make sense, because there was no before. And people would pause, because deep down, we all know, it can't. Now, really think about that. Don't rush past it. But a quantum vacuum isn't nothing. It's a field with structure, rules, fluctuations. One that is uncaused, intelligent, and powerful. It's governed by physics. In other words, it's still something. How did all of that come to be? We're talking about a necessary being, one who explains why anything exists at all. If the universe were eternal, we'd have run out of energy an infinite time ago. But here we are, in a universe still bursting with energy, stars still shining. That strongly suggests it had a beginning. Atheism often leans on science to answer these questions. But here's the thing. Science is a method. You pick it up, it's unlocked, working, filled with apps. Would you believe it just assembled itself from sand and heat and pressure? How physical neurons give rise to thoughts, emotions, self-awareness. Yet atheism says it all came from blind, unguided processes. A slight change in gravity, electromagnetism, or nuclear force, and life wouldn't be possible. That's not a faith claim. That's physics. That over millions of years, random natural forces arranged molecules into a circuit board, touchscreen, and software. Take the Big Bang Theory. It describes the rapid expansion of the universe from a hot, dense state. Some try to say nothing created the universe. But what do we mean by nothing? You believe kindness is better than cruelty, that human life has value. Imagine walking up to a store that's closed, no one inside. No lights, the doors are locked. Can you buy something from that store? Of course not, because the cause is missing. The source is absent. Why harming innocent people is wrong, even if a society says it's okay. Not because they're unpopular, but because they violate something deeper. Because in philosophy and science, nothing is not just empty space. It's not a vacuum. It's literally no thing. And useful changes. DNA, for example, carries precise information, like a language. Who wrote that code? Can something really come from that? It can love, remember, calculate, create music, dream, reflect on the universe, and wonder where it came from. That's not science. That's magic. Without the magician, God did not create the heavens and the earth and what is between them, except in truth and for a specified term. Quran Surah 30, verse 8. To ask questions. From ancient philosophers in Greece to scholars in India and the Middle East, belief in a creator was the norm. These weren't ignorant people. Those are valid. And not having every answer doesn't mean there is no answer. It just means we don't know it yet. They were astronomers, architects, poets, and philosophers. And many of them saw belief in God as not just comforting, but logical. You look at design and you infer a designer. You look at moral law and you recognize a lawgiver. You look at a universe that had a beginning and you conclude there must be a cause. Why are we here? What's the meaning of life? What happens when we die? Think of this analogy often used by scholars like Dr. Zakir Naik. No, you just haven't learned how yet. That love, beauty, sacrifice, and truth matter, that we're part of a bigger story. Similarly, if the universe had no cause, if there was no source, how could it begin? Sheikh Ahmed Deedat used to put it bluntly, can something come from nothing? Let's have a real conversation. Not a debate, but a search for truth. Some atheists try to sidestep this by saying the universe came from a quantum vacuum. Others suggest the universe always existed. But that clashes with the second law of thermodynamics, which says usable energy is always running out. And if there was a beginning, there must be a cause. A cause that exists outside time and space. That's what people mean when they say God. You don't have to picture an old man in the sky. That's a cartoon. Now let's make this practical. Imagine finding a smartphone lying on the street. Of course not. That would sound ridiculous. Yet the human brain is far more complex than any smartphone. Even neuroscientists admit, we don't fully understand how consciousness works. Isn't that a stretch? Richard Dawkins himself admitted that nature gives the appearance of design. Overwhelming design. Why do the laws of physics seem so perfectly tuned for life? So what's the most reasonable explanation? Sheer luck, infinite universes, or design. Let's get personal. You believe in justice, right? That some things are truly right and others are truly wrong. But ask yourself, if we're just advanced animals, bags of atoms shaped by random mutations, why should morality exist at all? You don't need to believe in God to act morally. But without God, can you explain why morality is objective? Because if morality is just opinion or evolution, then it's not really right or wrong. It's just useful. But we do believe some things are absolutely wrong. That something is called a moral law. And if there's a law, there's a lawgiver. Now, some say religion is outdated, that it's just mythology, that modern people have outgrown it. But here's a strange fact. For thousands of years, across almost every culture, humans believed in a higher power. So are we saying they were all wrong, and that modern atheism, a belief that exploded only recently in human history, got it right? Even now, atheism struggles to offer real answers to life's biggest questions. It either offers silence or tells you, there is no meaning. You're a cosmic accident. Enjoy it while it lasts. But that doesn't sit well with most people. Why? Because we feel that life has meaning. Islam, for example, doesn't ask you to shut off your brain, a Quran says. Do they not reflect within themselves? It invites you to reflect, to think deeply. Belief in God isn't blind. It's built on reason. Atheism can raise tough questions about suffering, about religion, about evil. Imagine walking into a control room full of machinery. You don't understand how any of it works. Does that mean it's running by chance? In the same way, the mystery of life doesn't disappear just because we don't grasp all of it. So the next time someone says atheism makes more sense, ask, can it explain where everything came from? Why anything exists at all? Why morality matters? Why the universe is so finely tuned for life? Why we yearn for purpose? Atheism may offer clever words, but belief in a creator offers coherence, depth, and hope. And sometimes, all it takes is one honest question to change your entire perspective. Where did everything come from? Thanks for watching.